And so that's one of the things, that we have, planetarium, all sorts of stuff. But we're here to talk about Lights Out Heartland, which is, okay, I've never given this presentation before. I've looked at it dozens of times. It's very dense. I'm sorry. Okay, it's not my fault. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on each slide because we're going for that 30,000 foot view. I'm not trying to organize a grassroots efforts to create a lights out Fayetteville. But one of you might be interested in that, right? Okay, so here we go. All right, Lights Out Heartland is a collaboration of organizations y'all can read. The goal is to turn off outdoor lights, particularly during May and September, during the bird migration, the highest peak of the bird migration. Now, if you're interested in bird migrations, you can always go to a website called birdcast.org, and it gives you a forecast of how many birds are going to be migrating tonight, okay? Here's the cool part. Doppler radar. Turns out Doppler radar allows you to count individual flying birds. And through Doppler radar, they kept seeing these clouds form and come up into the sky. And they started figuring out it was birds. They can tell birds from bats. They can tell bats and birds from moths. Wow. Okay? So they started an organization. Can't remember what university started building this program, but now they can forecast based on weather and moon conditions and other things, the forecast, and then the next day go back and say, well, we hit that one or we missed that one, because they literally can count the birds that fly at night, which you can't see, right? We always think everything happens in the daytime because that's what most of us are geared towards. But there's so much that happens at night. Okay. Moving on. Alan, artificial light at night. Okay. Not light pollution. It's a broader term. It's just artificial light at night. Light pollution is human-made alteration of outdoor light levels from those occurring naturally. Any light technically causes light pollution, okay? And as I said, this is not about no lights at night. This is about the right amount, the correct amount of light, the correct location, the correct reason, right? Okay, so light pollution. You hear all these things, right? Everybody agrees. Air pollution, littering, water pollution, soil contamination, radioactive contamination, visual pollution. Everybody know what visual pollution is?
Yeah, billboards.
Billboards, right? Okay, on the east side of Fayetteville, there is a telephone tower that looks like a ginormous pine tree. Who's ever seen that thing? Okay, let's be frank. I think that's visual pollution too. Okay, it's like lipstick on a pig, and I see that and think, every time I drive through there, I go, who's ever seen a 400-foot tall pine tree in Arkansas? Maybe a redwood, but not in Arkansas. Okay, plastic pollution, right? Microplastics are everywhere now. Thermal pollution. Thermal pollution is one I start thinking, you got to think about. Who's heard of heat sinks in cities? Cities are hotter, right? And they retain heat because of all the concrete and all the other materials. So there's a thermal pollution in cities. In New York City, in places with massive concrete that don't have trees, have a serious problem with thermal. It does not cool down at night, right? Here, we have a fantastic tree cover in northwest Arkansas. That helps with that thermal pollution, right? But it still happens. That building is going to heat up, and it's going to radiate heat all night long, okay? And light pollution. I see light pollution. I give a talk out at Hobbs State Park about light pollution a couple times a year. And I love it when there's a guy with an NRA hat or somebody that looks really, really conservative, because I'll ask him. I'll say, I'm going to pick on you. Okay. Do you like fireflies?
Love them.
You love fireflies. Do you watch birds? His wife says, oh yeah, we came here to watch birds. I said, so you want to fight light pollution, right? And you can see the look on his face, because he's thinking, I want my lights. I want my guns, right? And And he's got an NRA hat on. This is a true story, an NRA hat. And I'm like going, well, if you like fireflies, you want to stop light pollution because LED lights specifically disrupt the reproductive cycle of fireflies. The flashes are part of the reproductive cycle. And if there's so much light, the beetles don't know it's night. What do? Not flash. And if they don't flash, they don't reproduce. If you like fireflies, you don't like light pollution, especially LED light pollution. If you like birds, birds get trapped, and we're going to talk about some of this, okay? Which button? There we go. Light pollution disrupts wildlife, impacts human health, wastes money. Okay, we're going to stop there real quick. How many of you have, don't trip on this wire. How many of you told your kids are of a certain age and said, turn your lights out, you're wasting electricity? This is participatory. All of you should raise your hands because you said some version of that. Okay, that's not a concrete thing, wasting money. How about if I told you a 100-watt light bulb left on for 24 hours uses 1 pound of prime top grade Wyoming coal? 1 pound, okay? That's 365 pounds a year, right? So in 4 years, 5 years, one light used 1 ton of coal. If you leave that light on, that has an impact. That's a concrete thing. I used to have a pound of coal, but one year we gave it to my kids for Christmas. That's all. That's all they got that year. And they were, huh?
In the beginning.
Well, they finally got some other stuff, but it was that afternoon. They, believe me, that has an impact on kids, right? Okay. If you have a light, fog is the great revealer of light pollution. Fog is the great revealer because you really can't see where the light's going a lot of times. But if you drive around, it's going to be foggy tonight, tomorrow morning. If you drive around, you're going to see lights that are shining half of their light up in the sky. Exactly why do we need half the light it's produced up in the sky? There's no reason. There's zero reason, right? You want the light down on the ground where we need it, right? At the crosswalks, at the intersections. We don't want it up in the sky. All that light shining up in the sky represents, if it's half the electricity that's using is absolutely wasted. It's like leaving your faucet on half open at night and going, why is my water bill so high? Well, you can turn the water off. It doesn't matter, right? You lower your water bill. Same with electricity. That causes a waste of money. And it's a massive amount of money. Now, you'll see more and more street lights have full cutoff shields where light just shines down on the ground. Those are great. The problem is, we're going to talk about the color of light, which is measured in temperature. They're many times too bright, okay? They're super bright white LEDs, which, by the way, is the website, super bright white LEDs, superbrightleds.com. And you can they sell more. Who's driven up on a police car with all their lights on at night and you can't see anything, right? It happens. Why? Because it's too bright. There's too much of it. I almost ran over a policeman once. He banged on the side of my car, and I talked to him nicely. I thought, I couldn't see you. How can you not see me? Turn around and look. And he's like, well, I said, hang on, let me call your captain. And, hey, Mike, I almost ran over your officer. Here's what happened. Handed the phone to him. He puckered. I used to work for the newspaper, the Benton County Daily Record, and I know lots and lots of people have lots and lots of phone numbers. And I went to high school with him. Okay, and it blocks our view of the universe. You say view of the universe to most people about light pollution, and they give 2 shakes about it, okay? They don't care, okay? They just don't care about your view of the heavens. They think more light is better light. There's some studies out there that were done in Chicago, and I can't remember what other city. They studied alleys. And then they turned the lights off in part of them. Now, what do you think happened in the alleys with no lights?
Nothing.
Did you say nothing?
More crime.
More crime. Criminals need light. The crime stopped. Hot Springs, Arkansas, a couple years ago, having a terrible vandalism problem. One of the people said, why don't we just turn off the lights? And I said, oh, why? It'll get worse. And they're like, this guy, Ned Skoog, I think it was Ned, said, no, it was Kent Myers, said, can it get worse? And so they turned off the lights in some of their parks. In the next month, they turned off all the lights in their parks at night. Okay? We all have this concept that light at night prevents crime. Okay? Light prevents crime. That sounds reasonable, right? Okay. Why does most crime happen in the daytime where there's plenty of light? Right?
Because people can see.
Because people can see. We're scared of the dark. We're scared of the bears. Our hippocampus, or whatever this thing back here is the fight or flight thing, says there'd be bears out there. There'd be wolves out there, right? And that's why we're scared of the dark. And we have, since 1888, I think it is, when the first light bulb, it's like, boy, we can get rid of the night. It has lots of consequences. I am talking way too much because there's 614 slides. Okay. 66 million years ago today, dinosaurs went extinct. I said 1888. 1880 is when the first light bulb was patented. Okay? So remember the definition of light pollution, artificial light at night. Now, granted, a candle is probably not going to cause a whole lot of light pollution, right? And if you know the definition of limelight, they would burn slack lime and it'd be really bright. But it was impractical to light up the night with it. They lighted up a theater for an hour. Okay. 1941, light pollution has gotten worse. 1960, the first LEDs. The LEDs really didn't come into use by us until the early 2000s. And astronomers were excited because you can make them directional and it's going to stop the light pollution. It accelerated light pollution because, look, if you're a city government or a university or somebody and you have a budget for electricity, for lights, you're not going to go and say, gee, cut my budget. You're going to say, gee, I've got all this money. I can put up more lights and there be wolves gone, right? Okay. 1988, Dark Sky, International Dark Sky Association was formed. And the span from 1940 to 2003 today, light pollution has more than doubled, okay? It's estimated that 80 to 85% of the people living in the United States can never see the Milky Way, okay? It's estimated by 2030, 95% of the people that live in the United States, and frankly, the world, won't be able to see the Milky Way. In literally my generation, we've lost the night sky. I'm 60 years old. In 60 years, back here to 1963, right there, we have lost the night sky. It's dramatic. Downtown Springdale, in 1975, 3 blocks west of the public library at Rogers Circle Drive, I took a Minolta camera in December the 20th or something like that, put it up in the sky, hour after sunset, I opened the shutter, took a time lapse, got up an hour before sunrise, closed the shutter, processed it, got a fantastic star trail. It was beautiful. You can't do that today because you can't see any stars from 135 Rogers Circle Drive. You can see a couple of planets. You can see the 10 brightest stars if you stay up all night. That's all you can see on any given night. Estimated the late 1950s. This is from a website. I think this is from lightpollutionmap.info, something like that. So, you know, if you're good with geography, if you're good with geography, I mean, you can say, okay, what's that? St. Louis.
Kansas City straight.
What's that?
That's Tulsa.
That's Tulsa. What's that?
Northwest
That's us. Okay? You can see it plain as day. Light pollution, in many aspects, is a map of human population. Okay? There we are. That's the Heartland, right? This is the middle 70s estimated. And, come on. There we are. And this is 1997. And that's 2025. Okay? There's not a single place in the United States that's not impacted by light pollution. Not one place in the lower 48. You can get up in Alaska and find it. But it's hard to get to those places in Alaska. We're lucky in many respects because, let's see, right here is the Buffalo River, right? You can see the Milky Way from down there. It's still very nice for about 10 more years. 10 more years. Nobody in the eastern United States will be able to see the Milky Way a decade from today. Okay? And if you can't see the Milky Way, you don't understand what the Milky Way is, and you don't give any care about it, right? Even out west, it's terrible. Moving on. Okay, we talked about energy, lights going up. How many dollars of electricity do you think that night is? I don't know what city this is. Maybe, this is St. Louis. There we go. St. Louis. And I'm going to guess that probably is not a recent picture, although I don't know. Okay. Worldwide growth is 2% per year. Okay, based on 2016 studies. The reality is it's probably more than that now, globally. Come over here and stand a little bit so y'all can see the screen without my big body in the way. And you go back and look. What's that right there? That's Afghanistan.
Oh, sorry.
You come up here.
Further west.
Himalayas are right in there. Yeah. Let me see. That's South Korea. I haven't looked at this. That's North Korea right in there. North Korea is one of the darkest places on earth. Yeah. What she said. This is some, sky brightness. Migrating birds at risk. Okay, here we go. Now how long have we been here? 45 minutes already? Somebody just announce a time every once in a while so I know what I'm doing. We only have 154 slides now. Night sky, health, energy, safety, wildlife. While most of us sleep at night, most of the animal world is awake and doing their thing, right? Okay. Mating, pollination, migration, feeding. We talked a little about birds. We talked about pollination. We've talked about mating. Okay. 30% of all vertebrates and more than 60% of invertebrates worldwide are nocturnal. So more than half of the Earth's life happens at night. The National Park Service has a thing that half the park is at night and they have a big push. If you're retired and you do astronomy, you can go volunteer in any national park and they will let you camp there for free if they have a campground. I have a friend that did it for a year. Went from Glen Canyon Dam to Grand Canyon to Arches back to the Grand Canyon. Lived for free. Water, utilities, Wi-Fi. He's volunteered 30 hours a week doing amateur astronomy, setting up telescopes. And on the full moons, he took people on night hikes, right? So light pollution, we've talked about this. Nature doesn't have a choice. They either live with it or they die. They can't turn out the lights. They don't have automatic off switches, which Walmart sells them. The BB gun section. Okay. I do not advocate. I'm simply providing information. Impact on wildlife. You know, my nephew Alan would probably take exception to his name being used like Karen, right? Because this is sort of a Karen thing. 5 primary areas: orientation, navigation. And we were talking about this with this gentleman up front, and of the apples, right? We talked about insects are drawn to streetlights. You drive by a streetlight and you see swirling bugs. Those bugs are trapped. They're not meant to be under that streetlight. They're meant to be out there flying around doing their thing. But where are they? Under the streetlight. We have chickens. There's a porch light on the back porch of the house. The chickens, if it's nice, will stay under the light all night long because there's enough light they don't go to sleep, and they're eating bugs. There's a toad or two that live around the porch, and they'll show up at night going, Golden Corral buffet of bugs. All right. And we've all heard of turtles, right? The turtle thing on the beach. Same thing happens to birds. Predators, moths, toads drawn to street lights. Competition between species, some adapt better. Reproduction, flashing signs of fireflies, we talked about that. Circadian rhythms, right? The birds have a circadian rhythm just like we have a circadian rhythm, okay? Population growth, habitat loss, pollution, climate change, and I said this term a minute ago talking to you, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's not one thing. Who remembers as a kid driving around wherever you lived, and at night, in the summertime, your windshield getting covered by bugs? Y'all remember that? Think about it. Did you have to stop and scrape the bugs off your windshield once this summer? Is it because the bugs don't stick to modern windshields? It's because the insects aren't there. They're gone. Plants. Okay. That's a tree in New York. I had an event at my church in Bentonville, and I looked up, and here's a sweet gum tree, and a lower row of sweet gum trees, and they all had dropped most of their leaves. But there's a street light that's shining, it's a full cutoff shield street light, shining all its light on the ground, and the leaves, December the 13th, the leaves under the tree were still green and growing under the street light, okay? You can see this. Maybe too late now because of the super duper freeze we had. But you can go out and look next fall, make a note, and go look. And where the lights are, where the light shines, leaves are still on tree.
Never noticed that.
Go through life curious. See something weird. You didn't notice the bugs not on your windshield, did you? None of you noticed it. But you've noticed it? You've noticed it if you keep up with ecology and some science. There was a study in Sweden, and it's astounding. I think it's Sweden, one of the Nordic countries, estimates they've lost 80% of their insects.
Wow.
Okay. Here's another example. There's a street light. This is exactly what I saw. I couldn't get a good picture of it because I'm down on the ground and there's a bunch of trees behind it, or else I would have stuck that picture in here as a local example. Okay? Sensitive to wooding plants. I'm not going to read this. We're just going to blow through this real quick. Some trees are very sensitive, and I don't know the science behind this because I haven't dug into it. But here's a sweet gum, and I can tell you it says it's low sensitivity. I got a picture that proves that 100% wrong. Okay, at least that kind of light. Street lamps can impact growth of flowery plants. I don't know what this picture shows, other than, it's a pretty picture. Mammals.
I think the Missouri primrose opens at night for the moths.
Yes, they bloom at night. There you go. And if there's no night,
They don't open.
that slide should say that. I'm going to,
Well, it does say Missouri primrose.
well, yeah, but it doesn't say what the importance is.
Oh,
It doesn't give the clue of these open at night, but they don't open, like moonflowers.
it knew I was coming.
Like moonflowers. I have a friend with moonflowers, And if there's enough light, moonflowers won't open, right? Mammals. Oh, Ricky Raccoon. Everybody loves the raccoons. You know, this was developed in Missouri, but I could have gone through and changed it to Arkansas, and every word would apply, right? Large wild mammals, deer, raccoons, foxes, coyotes, all have to deal with light, or too much light, or, you know, for them there's not enough light. There's no such thing. Bats. You know, white and green light, but we're abundant in red light and darkness. Okay, so astronomers use red flashlights. Why? Because as long as it's not super real bright, red light does not affect our night vision. Right? The older we get, the slower our pupils get small. Right? The older we get, the less large our pupils get. Saw something a few weeks ago that talked about growing old as a slow, unnoticed dive into darkness for humans. They get a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker. You don't notice it because your frame of reference is only yesterday. You can't compare what you saw 10 years ago with what you see today. You don't have that frame of reference. So we slowly lose our night vision. And that's where light pollution, when you're driving, comes into effect. Okay? Amphibians and reptiles. Stunted growth, do a 24-hour life cycle. They don't get rest. Mating calls influenced. If males aren't calling, the females aren't reproducing. Avoid predators by foraging in the darkness. If there's no darkness, doesn't happen, causes low reproduction. Fishes. And this was something I hadn't thought about. There's most of the stuff I'm aware of, but this is one I haven't really thought about, is that it affects fish. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Because when I was a kid, we'd go out under the Highway 12 bridge and tie up under the bridge in April and May, and would put crappie lights, and the crappie lights would attract the little fishes, and the little fishes would attract the white bass, and we'd catch the tar out of the white bass. And my dad let my brother and I go one time, and we caught like 130 white bass. And we were so proud of ourselves. We got home, and he's like, "Good job, boys. Enjoy cleaning those." So anyway, invertebrates. Fireflies in South Georgia, right? We all like fireflies. We've talked about it. Who has ever seen a firefly synchronization? You ever heard of that? I haven't seen one. It's got to be just amazing. They all start flashing in sync. They start out not in sync, but over a period of 30, 45 minutes, I've seen videos of it. I would love to see a firefly synchronization where all the fireflies are doing it at the same time. Monarch butterflies. I have a few acres of land, and I have butterfly weed. Milkweed, thank you, milkweed. And boy, they get hammered. And it's nice because we board horses on the land. The horses don't eat the milkweed. So the milkweed's just standing there nice and pretty. The horses don't like it. But boy, there's a lot of butterflies. Role of insects in pollination, right? 80% of flowering plants and 75% of crop species rely on pollination, right? And when I say pollination to you, you think of one thing and one thing only, don't you? Honeybees. Mm-hmm. Yes, no?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore because of awareness. You say pollination to lots of people. I ask at work, and they all think honeybees. Pest control, right? And the dung beetles is an interesting thing we're going to talk about here maybe next. 27% in 30 years. Worst in North America, especially in the Midwest. That's us, right? That's us. Dung beetles. How many of you have ever seen a dung beetle rolling in a dung ball? Pretty cool, isn't it? It's pretty cool to see. If they can't see the sky, they can't roll the dung beetles where they want them, the dung balls where they want them. Here's a map. Those are the paths dung beetles took. You know, miniaturization of GPS trackers have really revolutionized a lot of science. Those are the paths dung beetles took when the Milky Way was visible. And that's the path they took when they couldn't see the Milky Way. Bless their dung beetle hearts. Right? Birds. That's what we're here for. 3 flyways. 70% of terrestrial birds migrate. 80% of those birds migrate at night.
Wow.
That was unknown. Unknown until the advent of Doppler radar. Doppler radar revealed the unseen. Okay? So this is geared for Missouri because the Missouri chapter made it. But, you know, why do they fly at night? It's cooler. They avoid predators because, you know, there's no eagles and hawks and things like that picking them off. And they navigate by the moon and stars. Okay? Here's 2 very large buildings in Missouri, but we have not so large buildings here in Fayetteville in northwest Arkansas, but they're coming. I saw this morning, there's a group of developers wanting to build the largest skyscraper in the world. Guess where? Not in Arkansas. Oklahoma City.
By the way, recent research shows that the smaller buildings are actually doing more damage.
It's the super tall ones are the ones you focus on, but every light does damage. Like if you just turn your lights off, think globally, act locally. Turn your lights off in September, in May and September. But that leads to the thought of, if I can get by without my lights at night and shut my shades at night in May and September, can I do it in April and August? And then can I do it in June and October? Now I've done half the year. Maybe I can get by without those lights, right? So you think globally and act locally. You have an impact, at least a little bit, right? Disoriented light pollution are usually either overexhaust themselves, just flying around, and typically an hour and a half before sunrise, because we see them come up, right, and fly on the radar, and then you can see them go down at night, right? And Birdcast has pictures of this. High rises, 1% mortality, but their bird per billion mortality rate is higher. Low rises, you can read this. Data provides, like St. Louis, those are birds that were killed in building collisions. Hang on. So there's St. Louis, right? It's amazing to watch, really, the number of birds that migrate in this corridor right here, right? And I know we got a bird photographer here, you know. It's amazing the birds that fly through here in Oklahoma. Massive number of birds fly through here in Oklahoma, going to the upper Midwest and up into Canada. So, Chicago, Illinois, and this is a 2019 study by Cornell, the preeminent bird program out there. 60 million birds die each year from building collisions. In the United States, Chicago was 1, Houston was 2, DFW 3, Long Beach, you can read. What's crazy is 3 of the 10 largest cities in the United States are in Texas, which is just mind-boggling to me. You know, when you think about Los Angeles and New York and the eastern seaboard. All right. St. Louis is there, Kansas City's there. You know, we've all, probably most of you have been to at least Kansas City and maybe St. Louis probably. We're not them, thank goodness. If you had to choose one, I think I'd choose Kansas City because it's not St. Louis. If you're from St. Louis, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. One night, hitting the same building in Chicago, 1,000 birds in one night. If you're on Instagram, there's a lady, I don't know if she's still doing it or not. She walks around one building of the World Trade Center complex. One building. And she picks up every dead bird she can get from the public areas. Not on the terraced roofs or the air conditioning units. She just picks up what's on the sidewalk and public areas around that one building, the World Trade Center complex. Hundreds of birds every night during the migration. She puts them in order by species and takes a picture and puts it on Instagram. right? So, like I said, we've got about 100 slides to go now. What time is it? 2:44. Okay. It's supposed to be an hour talk. I got 2 things to do the rest of the afternoon. Diddly and squat. So if y'all want to stay, you can stay and we'll go on, all right? Light pollution and collisions, going on down the road. Collisions per day per 100 meters. Okay? So when window lighting is on, right? When window lighting is off, showing the structure of what happens when you turn the lights off, right? Do I think there needs to be an effort to have a lights out NWA? Absolutely. Why? We don't have tall high rises. We have light pollution, right? It's about raising awareness. Again, doing what we can locally to impact things globally, right? And this is going to be available. I think they're going to put this out on the federal website, this presentation. So you can go, if you like to digest stuff, you can digest to your little digester's heart's content. Purple martins. Arriving early is dangerous for purple martins because they freeze to death, right? They can't stay warm. Purple martins with the highest level of artificial light at night, Alan, arrive 8 days earlier than previous times. My grandmother had purple martins in Gentry, and she would sit out there and she'd just sit in a chair and just talk to them for hours. I have great memories of purple martins. I'm building a house east of Pea Ridge, and we're going to put up purple martin houses this spring, or this fall, so hopefully I start collecting some purple martins. Estimated annual mortality from collision with these birds. Migrating, cruising, waterfowl 200 to 4,000 feet, raptors 700 to 900, songbirds 500 to 2,500. So who are the greatest impact? Songbirds. Songbirds. You know, people talk about wind turbines, and yes, wind turbines do kill birds. They tend to kill raptors because the raptors want to sit on top of them and scope out the pastures, right? And so raptors tend to get killed in those. You know, power lines, 28.6 million. Squirrels and birds are the 2 most common reasons for non-mechanical electrical outages. And most of them are squirrels, but big raptors land with 1 foot on one wire and 1 foot on something else, and pow. All right? Residents, you don't think they have an impact? 253 million birds. Buildings are the second, you know. Medium-sized buildings are the second. It's an impressive number caused by birds. Turn the lights off in one town on high-rise, reduce migratory bird deaths there at that building by 80%. How many of you go to a big city and you see the entire building lit up? You work at J.B. Hunt. You drive by that J.B. Hunt building, are all those floors fully occupied?
Some of them are at night, but not all of them.
Right. But are all 4 floors of lights on all night long?
I've seen a variety of lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. But it's easy to turn off lights. But people see those buildings and you get this beautiful picture of all these lights and buildings, and they are beautiful. But they have impact. All right. Restoring our night. Okay. I wish they didn't have that picture there so we could just see that picture. So we could just see that picture and go, where's the bad guy? You can't see the bad guy. But if you just shield the light, he's standing there. Back to the right amount of light in the right location for the right reason. Glare in this instance where a bare bulb is shining out into your eye. When you see a bright light, what does your pupil do? constricts, gets smaller. You can shout out the answers. This is not high school math class. I don't have a ruler and I'm going to whack you with it. You can shout out the answer. Your pupil constricts, right? And so if that light causes your pupil to constrict, you can't see the bad guy because it's not in the right place. You put a full cutoff shield on that light, and now you've got some nice light shining on the ground. You can see that guy. Driving along at night, we talked about this. You come around a corner, bright light, people get small, and then you drive out of that light. They put up a street light on Highway 72 going out of Bentonville. They put up a street light at an intersection. It's great at the intersection, but literally you can't see what's on the other side of the intersection unless it's a car. If there's somebody walking 30 feet outside of the light line, you can't see them. And then you go into this cave where your pupils are small. Who's driven through the two tunnels in Bentonville? The one exit where those tunnels are in Bentonville to get off and on? There's a tunnel. They have lights on all night long in them. I've just driven from Kansas City through all that darkness and not hit anything. But you drive into that and there's lights, and what happens? Your pupils get small. You come out. On that side of the tunnel, I could see fine. But you come out of that tunnel, I can't see the road because my pupils are small. They're brighter than the lights in my car. Okay, glare, right? Who has an astigmatism? Don't you love that spike that comes off? Mine's slowly turning. It's really weird. Yellowing lenses, veiling luminance. I talked about a slow decline into darkness. That's what we're talking about. The older you get, the harder it is. Okay? 5 principles of lighting principles. Useful. Use only light if it's needed. I asked a lady once who said she left her lights on all night long in her backyard. I asked her why. Well, to keep the criminals away. I said, do you stay up all night long looking for the criminals? You want to have impact on criminals getting into your yard? Put up motion detector lights. Now, that's going to cause a pucker factor for those people who are brave enough to go out and try and break into a place without light. Right? They're not going to do it. They're going to carry a flashlight around. Man, that looks suspicious. You know? Okay. Targeted. Direct light so it falls only where it's needed. Right? Where is it needed? On the ground. Right? On a gate. But not shining like a spotlight on the gate. Right? There's ways to structure light so it goes where you want it. Right? Low level. No brighter than necessary. Right? Controlled. Only when it's needed. Warm colors. We're going to talk about colors because colors become important. And understanding the numbers becomes important. Okay? This is very similar to a light on Southeast J Street in Bentonville down from the high school. Half this light is going where? Up, right? So that's a badly designed light. Do you agree with that? No, it's a well-designed light that's turned on its side. If you take this light, and literally, the PowerPoint I give for light pollution, I turn it on its side so the light is shining down. That's a very well-designed light. And I have a picture, and there's a hinge right there. And if it wasn't 45 feet in the air, because I don't have a 45-foot extension ladder, one night I would show up and tip it, and no one would ever know that I did it. So oftentimes it's not the light, it's the installation. And many times it's the installation. Okay, and this is the Cobra head, light going up, full cutoff shield, light going down. Low-level controls, timers, dimmers, and photocells. Right? Colors, here we go, proper spectrum. We tend to think if bright white is great, then ultra bright is better, and super duper whatever, Doppler, I always make a joke, the TV station, they have super Doppler, and So I started doing super duper Doppler,
Super duper
you know, and so that's where that came from. You know, 3,000, anything over 3,000 starts getting into this white light, which has a lot of blue light. The farther you go this way, the bluer they get. And you go by lights, and they have this big old section of 5,000, 6,000 K lights at your big box retailer, and they have a couple of square linear feet of these, right? So this is where incandescent bulbs, all the bulbs we grew up with are right there. That happens to be about the same color as firelight. And our long ago ancestors grew up with firelight, and our eye is engineered to work well at 2,800 to 3,000 K. But people see that bright white, and bright white is better, right? And they'll market these as same as sunlight, except they're not, because look up a spectrograph of the sun from a spectroscope, then look up a spectrograph from one of these bad boys, and tell me if it's sunlight. The answer is, it's not. Okay, back here again, household lights, early sunrise, tungsten candlelight, north blue sky, right? Okay, here's something. On those beautiful days where the sky is really a dark blue, why is it so dark blue? Because you're seeing, the sky is so clear, you're seeing the darkness of space come down. You're looking up into the darkness of space through a clear sky. That's why that super blue gets there. Okay, so here we go. So a little bit of science. Lumens, correlation color, 2,700 to 6,500 K, watts or measured consumption. This right here is almost on all lights now. And if people have a choice, they come over here, right? They come over there. Wrong side of the spectrum, because more light is better, and brighter is better, and more brighter is more better. Okay. Neighborhoods, including rural ones, getting brighter. I live out of East of Pea Ridge. I can see the Milky Way. My sons live there. We're living with my son right now. We're building a house next door. I can notice a difference in the sky there in the 5 years since he moved there. Okay? And Fayetteville has a lighting ordinance, a very good lighting ordinance. Who knew that? Fayetteville has a lighting ordinance. There's no enforcement. The only enforcement is somebody call and complain. And so if the inspectors don't make, we'll say, a church on the west side of town who has very bright parking lot lights in front of their church. This is theoretical only. I don't mean this is to be true at all. It's theoretical discussion. And nobody complains, they put them up. And then somebody complains, they go, well, they've already got them up. Right? So, we got two choices. We really have three. And one's do something, and one's do nothing. Right? I don't know what the third one is. Had it, but forgot it. We got a fork in the road. One is a 2-track road, I guess implying proceed down the road. One's taking a path less traveled. Right? So we have choices there. Lighting makes for good neighbors. Right? And if you look at this light right here, remember I told you that it's a good light. But notice the hinge. Right? You just point that light down, it's going to be a good light. Some people will happily go, oh, I didn't know. If you're an astronomer, you have your telescope out a few nights in your driveway or backyard, and you're about to, hey, come over and look. Now you see that. And then you start talking about how it'd be so much better if your light wasn't on, which is a hard conversation to have. But sugar catches more than, whatever substance you want to pick. Partner programs. I'm not going to read this to you. Y'all can read. keep thinking of that cord as my shoelace untied. Okay? Conversation with your neighbors. If you feel so moved, somebody might want to start a Lights Out Fayetteville or Lights Out NWA. You know, I got enough balls in the air and the things I juggle, right? I got a lot of, I call it wrestling the octopus. You know, I got to let go of one arm because there's another one getting wrapped around my face. But there's all sorts of ways to attack this. But I encourage you to act locally. You know, talk to your neighbors about this. You know, because the bird watchers among you care. They just may not know it yet. And sometimes one conversation leads to change. And you never know when that one person, maybe it's the city planner, and you don't know what that person does, or works for an electric company, and can affect the change from inside, right? You never know who you're talking to. Both those examples, I did. In one example, I knew who he was. It was a city planner. And he came back 6 months later. He said, "Ken, I thought you were a nut." He said, "I've known you for 15 years, but you started talking about light pollution." He said, "I thought you were a nut." He said, it sat on my desk for a week, and I said, "I'm going to read it real quick and throw it away because respect Ken." And he read it, and he said, "I can change. I'm the city planner of Bentonville. I can affect this." And he did. Right? You can have those conversations. Carroll Electric, about 6 years ago, the only streetlights they put up are full cutoff shield streetlights. They won't say a word about it. They don't want me to say a word about it. You know, don't write it on Facebook.
What kind?
Full cutoff shield. Like that, where it's full cutoff. So the bulb's up inside, right? So all the light goes down, right? So all the light goes down. They're out there, big box retailers, Home Depot and Lowe's sells them. There's car lots that have really good full cutoff shield lights, except they have a piece of glass that drops down and has those little lenses cut into them to shine light up in the sky. Why does a car lot want light shine up in the sky? Saying, "Look at me," right? Convenience stores. There are some very well-lit convenience stores out there. Most convenience stores now, their lights are recessed up in the awnings over the pumps, and you pull up and they're well-lit, but you don't see the lights. And if you don't know about it, you don't even recognize what's going on, because good lights don't get noticed. And you don't even consciously go, "Oh, wow, that's a full cutoff shield light." But now you will. Some of you are going to drive around tonight, and in your neighborhood, you're going to go, "Good light, good light." Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm getting an off switch. Yeah. So did I answer your question about full cutoff shields? Okay. Universities, governments, zoos. I have to edit this. This is my newspaper coming out. Who sees the incorrect word? Go! It's like I can look at my eye goes, "Oh, there's the word." Urban Night Sky Places, okay? The International Dark Sky Association has International Dark Sky Park. Buffalo National River is one. It's the longest one in the world, 156 miles long. It's also the narrowest at 1.5 miles, okay? So I was part of that effort in a little bitty way, but I helped do that. We're starting an effort. I had an effort underway for Pea Ridge National Military Park to be an urban night sky place. It's too bright to be a dark sky park, but you can get some designations. and the guy I was working with died, and God rest his soul, he was a great guy, fell over dead. And the person replaced him gives 2 shakes about it. So that's dead for the time being, although the National Park Service is pushing this, right? National Parks are pushing it. Hobbs State Park, we're getting ready to launch an effort there. It's going to be really easy in both places because the guy at P Ridge, there was one light in the park. We had a star party out there, and I said, that light's a terrible light. He had it taken down the following Monday, right? Hobbs State Park is all built well. The street lights are good. It's going to be easy. It's just a matter of doing the paperwork and doing it, which takes about 3 years to document. But you don't know who you know that can have a change, that can cause something. Program partners, whole bunch. There's Arkansas National Sky Association, which I am a member. You can go to the International Dark Sky, darksky.org. $30, you can become a member of the Arkansas National Sky Association and help promote all of this dark sky stuff as well. Right? A couple people taking a picture. Let me know when you're done. Good? Okay. That's it. All 166 slides or whatever. I told you it was pretty dense. There's a lot in there. I don't like to have PowerPoints that long, but that's a pretty dense thing. Where are we at time-wise? Yes, ma'am. 306, not bad. Yes, ma'am. So we need more Arkansas things on there, and I'm going to work on some.
We've got Arkansas Audubon Society.
Arkansas Audubon Society, they're a great partner for Dark Skies. They're a co-sponsor of the Arkansas Dark Sky Festival. And we're going to have it again. It's in September, I think, over on south of the Buffalo River at Bear Creek Cabins.
So is that information going to be on that website?
If you search for Arkansas Dark Sky Festival,
Okay.
it'll be up there. And you know, there's people who come who have never seen the Milky Way before. And I'll tell you a sad story. We had a star party down at Mulberry Mountain, down on 23 Pig Trail. And it was it Labor Day weekend? I can't remember which weekend it was. And right around Labor Day. And there was, they had people ride their ATVs because they can access, their buggies and access 280 miles of trails out in the National Forest. And some of their kids came down and were looking through the telescopes, and it got to be 11 o'clock, and the parents came down. Well, we were sitting there, it got dark, and we were just looking at stuff. And they were all teenagers, some 8, 9-year-olds, but teenagers. This girl was probably 13. She goes, "Hey, what's that big cloud up in the sky?" And I went, "That's the Milky Way. I've heard of that. Never seen the Milky Way." And she was blown away. All the kids were just amazed. And we're just in awe of looking through good telescopes at Jupiter and Saturn and all the other things that are up there, the Ring Nebula, just the summertime stuff. And their parents came down and said, "Time to go." Like, "No, we want to stay. Mom, look through the telescope." The parents, 4 or 5 parents come down. Not one of the parents would look through the telescope. Not one. Their kids were absolutely engaged, and their parents did not care. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. They were going, "Look, there's the Milky Way. Come on, it's time for you to go to bed." Okay. Now I know what the real reason was. They wanted the kids in bed so they could do other stuff.
It's September 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Thank you, Natalie. September, that's my wife, by the way, Natalie. She allows me to do all this stuff. Thank you very much.
I keep his calendar.
She does indeed. September 13th, 14th, and 15th, over on Bear Creek. It's like, camping is $25 for the 3 days. I mean, you're aware of it because,
I went last year.
okay, tell us about it.
Well, I actually stayed at one of the cabins at Bear Creek.
Okay, yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was amazing.
Had you ever seen it before?
Which,
Up through the telescopes? Had you ever looked through a good telescope before? A big telescope?
no. Well, So I lived in Flagstaff for about 4
Okay.
months.
That's, so you, okay. You live in Flagstaff has a very strong light pollution ordinance because of the observatory there. Where'd you go to play baseball, Natalie, with David? Phoenix.
Tucson.
Tucson had the first light pollution ordinance in the United States. I think it was 1972, because they understand the impacts of all those observatories around Tucson. In downtown Tucson, if you get in a parking lot and get a, because if the business closes, they have to turn their parking lights off. Have to. They can't leave them on. So you can go in the middle of a parking lot in downtown Tucson, look up and see the Milky Way in a city of however many hundreds of thousands of people. Tucson is not a small town. And you can see the Milky Way from downtown. They've now gone back and reinstalled all their lights are now on Internet of Things. And they have a stage. They can dim them in steps. And it gets to be 10 o'clock, they dim down. It gets to be 11:30, they dim down. Some of them turn off. Streetlights turn off completely because they're not needed. And if there's a wreck or some crime or something they need streetlights on, they can call dispatch and say, turn on all the streetlights on this street between this block and this block. Bam, they all come on. They light up. Okay? It's very cool. It's easy technology. Just takes the will of governmental organizations to make it so. Who's ever heard of the town of Gilbert? Gilbert, Arkansas. It's the only town inside a national park, except for Hot Springs. It's inside Buffalo National River. There's 28 people live there. How many streetlights do they have? 18. And they tried to get Entergy, who is their energy provider, to turn those lights off or to dim them or change them. And it was a battle because energy companies, what do they sell? Right? And so it was a battle, and they had to pay. They finally won. They had to pay to put up their own streetlights. And now they have to pay a monthly surcharge, a use fee, to service those lights. You can't just put them up and they're theirs and we'll replace it. The energy company makes them pay for the privilege of having dark sky friendly lights. Right? So in Fayetteville, you have SWEPCO, right? And Ozarks Electric. So you have to work with, if you're going to impact the street lights, you have to work with 2 electric companies, just in Fayetteville. Benton County has 27 municipalities. It's serviced by SWEPCO, Carroll Electric, Empire District, and Salem Springs buys electricity from Oklahoma, from Grand River Dam Authority. So you have to deal with, and Bentonville and Salem Springs have municipally owned electric systems. That makes it easier for them to control lights and say what you can and can't do. So getting Bentonville to have a light pollution, light ordinance is a victory, except, right, and I have to deal with 27 other municipalities and 5 other electric companies. Right? It's tough. More questions?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you,
And if you need to leave, you won't hurt my feelings a bit. I've had people walk out on me a lot. A lot. It does not hurt my feelings.
we camp a lot at like
Mhm.
Federal Corps of Engineers,
Mhm.
areas, and the lighting from the camping people
Yep.
is atrocious.
Yes, ma'am.
Many times they leave it on all night. Are you aware of any kind of ordinance regarding the federal
The
campsites?
national parks enforce a lights out ordinance at, I think it's 9 o'clock. And along the Buffalo River, they enforce it. They literally will come tell you, you have to turn off your LEDs. You have to turn off your underbelly LEDs. You cannot leave them on all night long.
That's national parks, not
Not
necessarily,
Correct.
COE.
not Corps of
Corps of
Engineers.
Engineers is, once again, And then that's not BLM. And then that's not U.S. Forestry Service. Right? What do?
Yeah.
You get a victory with one, big deal.
I just thought if there was something that I
There's
could
not.
use that to go
But-
to courts.
But you see these camper rigs, tricked out with these bright blue lights. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Our underbelly light on our camper is a bright blue LED.
Or they string up lights all over
All
the place.
over,
and
because-
leave them lit up
You know
so
why?
bright.
You know why? There'd be wolves
I know. It's like-
out there, right? There'd be wolves, right? And that's huge,
Yeah.
right? You know, we went out to Black Mesa State Park out in the far panhandle of Oklahoma. If y'all have never driven out there, there's nothing out there, but boy, those roads are, if you like corn cobs, that's a great road. I mean, it's bad. But you get out there and they tell you to turn the lights off. But we were doing astronomy and there was a, you plug it in for the electricity.
Generator.
No, I'm drawing a blank. To make sure your electricity's good, right? Had a bright green and a bright blue light on it.
Like surge protectors.
Yeah, surge protector.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You hit 60 and your mind just goes. Surge protector, right? And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a coat and put it over there. I just put a coat over it, right? And before the night was over, when it closed down, I just got my coat and left, right? No, I'm not gonna tell that story because National Park Service would get mad. I'm not telling that story. You know, it's to see stars, you gotta see the stars. You gotta be in a dark place and no lights. For the birds to migrate, lights are the enemy. You know, tall buildings, your house. What was that, 233 million birds killed by residences? What's the tallest house is what, 30 feet off the ground? 40 feet, maybe? Yes, ma'am.
You know, I was just thinking while you were talking, the lights that come on automatically when it gets dark. With the upcoming eclipse on April 8th, I
Mhm.
wonder how many people are actually going to experience the true effects of that total eclipse.
Street lights will come on during the
Where the
eclipse.
street lights just automatically come on. We
So-
won't be able to really experience
Yeah, you will. It's not that, because it's up there. You'll be fine. Unless you're under the street lights, you'll be fine. Now then, how many, we're gonna be 98.5% eclipsed right here. How many of you think that's good enough? Good. 99% not good enough. 95.5%. It's not good enough. People ask me, what's it like? And the way I came up to explain it is, 98% is an ice cube you took out of your freezer and put on your cabinet at 98%. 99% been out for a minute. 99.5% been out for a minute and a half. You can't look at the sun 99.5% eclipsed. It's too bright. It will hurt your eyes. 100% is that light, is that ice cube instantly becomes boiling water. That's how dramatic it is for me. Who's seen a total eclipse before?
What was the one that was in Fayetteville, 2 years ago?
Well,
That was a,
there's been some partial eclipses,
Yeah.
frankly, all the time. The eclipse in 2017, we were going to St. Joseph, and it was like clouds. And a friend of mine and I, we said, where's the guaranteed place? And we drove straight through to Casper, Wyoming. And we saw the eclipse at 8,000 feet, something like that, on the backside of Mount Casper.
Was there one in '83?
There was a partial eclipse in 83, 84. It wasn't a total eclipse. It was a deep eclipse, but it wasn't here. It wasn't total.
Okay.
Okay.
I was in Houston at the time.
And
Yeah.
for those of you who buy your eclipse glasses now, okay, I work for Explore Scientific, which is the largest telescope store in the world is in Springdale, Arkansas, directly behind the Cracker Barrel. I don't care who you buy your eclipse glasses from. Love it if you buy it from us. But buy your eclipse glasses from a
Reputable.
a nice dealer. Okay? Look, don't save $1.50 because you only get one Mark 1R and one Mark 1L eyeball. And if you get knockoff cheap glasses from another country, they don't care about your eyes. They just care about your money. Buy from somebody off the NASA list. They don't say, they say, here's the approved dealers. Okay? Buy off that list. Don't try and save money, $1.50, to buy some cheaper eclipse glasses. It's not worth your eyes. And I can tell you, we're selling thousands a day. And we're selling more on Friday than we did on Monday. And I guarantee on Monday, we're going to say, on Monday, the following week, we're going to sell more on that Friday than we did on that Monday in total number. We're going to run out. We're going to run out probably before the eclipse. If you wait till the last minute, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to buy from a fly-by-night organization and you're not going to get safe glasses, or you're going to pay $50 for a pair that next Monday you could have bought for $250. That happened in 2017. Happened in 2017. It's going to happen again. If you're going to the eclipse and you're going to drive to Mountain Home, you're not going to drive to Mountain Home the day of the eclipse. You're going to drive somewhere between Harrison and Mountain Home, and you're going to stop because traffic's going to be a standstill. People don't believe this stuff. Oh, it's not going to be that bad. Yeah, it is.
It's
Have a-
so crazy to me that that's, because I'm from Heber Springs,
Mhm.
and so we're.
You're in the path. You're going to be at your. You're going to be at your.
That town is getting sold out. Like, I have a lake house there that I'm
Yeah.
going to put up for rent, so
Yeah.
that somebody.
Do you still have your parents' house? Is that one?
Parents live there.
Oh, you're still there? Okay, yeah. So, great party place.
We went to college together, so.
Her dad
We're gonna have
Bru-
a solar eclipse party. My mom and
brushes-
dad. My house is gonna be rented.
brushed
Yeah.
his teeth with vodka.
There you go.
Huh?
That was in
True?
his younger days.
That was in his younger days, probably not now. And we're going to be down in South Texas. We're having an event down in South Texas for camping and stuff. We Explore Scientific. But don't wait to buy your eclipse glasses. There's no reason to wait. And you're going to run out and you're going to wish you hadn't.
Go visit Kent and explore scientific.
Come visit me and Explore Scientific. I'm trying not to make this a commercial. This is not meant to be a commercial. I want you to buy your eclipse glasses as soon as you can
Be safe.
and be safe.
Our
What
daughter
if you got
found
free
seven
ones
Starkville,
months
Mississippi.
ago? Are they bad?
Hang on. Say that again.
What if you got free ones months ago?
Okay,
Are they
here's how you
bad?
tell. It's real simple. You get your eclipse glasses on a sunny day and go out and go like that, right? And if you see, and inspect them. Every time you use your eclipse glasses, you should inspect them with a light in your house. It's different than pinholes. Because a pinhole will hose your eye. It's a laser beam, right? Okay. I've got a video out there on YouTube that I took a really inexpensive telescope, pointed at the sun, focused it, took a pair of eclipse glasses down to the eyepiece, and just and it instantly melts it. Instantly melts it. People think that they're literally, they'll call and say, hey, can I do this? No! They want to put their eclipse glasses on and then look at it with a telescope. That's hyper gathered, crunched down. It's a laser beam. And it instantly melts through. Instantly, right? So if you want to use a telescope, you buy a filter you put on the top side of the telescope, the objective side, not the ocular side. And then that filters the sunlight, and it's safe to look at with a telescope. But if you can see, like super bright LEDs, if you hold them up to these lights, you can't see any light through them. There's some LEDs you can see maybe a little bit, but the easiest thing to do is just go out with the sun and just hold them up like that, arm's length, and see if you can see the sun. And if it's super bright, don't do it, right? And then you can come closer and go, yeah, those are okay, right? But that's the way to test them.
Okay. Thank you.
But look, If you have any doubts, don't chunk them and buy new ones. I mean, they're a couple bucks.
We came to another light pollution thing, and I think about the night sky, and they were giving out. the
Yeah,
lights.
there's organizations that give them out. They've bought them in, like Chambers of Commerce buy
We got
and give
it
out.
for the earlier one last year. that was-
NW Space will give them out.
Yeah.
You come, Shoba, how do we,
Do you remember what?
through the website? Or go to NWA.space, contact us. Hey, I want some Eclipse glasses. We'll get you some Eclipse glasses. There's a plug for that. All right,
We wish we did here.
the crowd is dwindling.
I'm leaving.
You did
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming.
And